Hello and welcome back to week 3 of the 6-week home barista bootcamp. This week we're going to learn how to texture silky milk. Now if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes, I definitely recommend watching them in order. The first week we learned some basics about setting up your gear for at home, and the second week we dived into extracting better espresso. Now the vast majority of people are going to take that great espresso shot that we learned about last week and then top it up with a whole bunch of milk. And that's fine. The way I got into coffee was drinking milk coffee myself, and I still really enjoy drinking it. Now there are just 3 things that go into really good milk coffee. So that's the milk you're using, how you actually texture it, and then the way you pour it into that espresso shot. So for the milk you're using, it's going to be easiest if you use full cream milk. Okay, so that's milk with a higher fat content. Now you can use skim or you can use any of the alternate milks, but it'll be a lot easier to texture and get that silky velvety milk with your full cream milk. And while we're on milk, buy yourself a really good quality milk. It's going to make up like 90% of your coffee. So if you just buy a cheap milk, it's going to ruin the taste of those really high quality beans that you've bought. Now the next thing you've got to understand is how you actually texture your milk. So make sure that you have a milk jug that is right for the coffees that you're making. What I mean by that is if you're just making one 8-ounce or standard size coffee, don't have one of those big jugs that is enough for a whole mug of coffee. Get yourself something like this, more around the 400 ml mark, and just texture the amount of milk that you need. Now for most jugs, you're just going to fill them about halfway to the bottom of that spout there. That means that there's going to be more than enough room for when your milk expands in volume as the air gets added. But also there's enough volume in milk so that you can get that whirlpool going, so that the air that you add is combined into the milk into this really silky way. So you can see I'm grabbing my milk here and pouring it to the bottom of the spout. And I'm just going to draw a line with a whiteboard marker just as a reference point so we can see how high our milk is raised by the end of texturing. So the next thing we do before we start texturing is we're going to take our steam wand, we're going to turn it on and purge any of the water that is in the steam wand. Basically what's happening is the steam that's been in the steam wand before, if it's left for any length of time, it cools down, condenses back to water. We want that nice dry steam from the get-go, so by purging our steam wand, we're going to get rid of that water. So now I like to move the steam wand out away from the machine so that I've got all the room I need to move the jug around as I need to. And just take note here of how I position the steam wand in the milk. So I use the spout of the milk jug to kind of guide where my steam wand is sitting. So I lock it into there. And if you imagine then the center of that milk jug and the edge of that milk jug, I go halfway between the two and I put a slight angle on the milk jug so that I get this nice angle for when that steam comes on, so that whirlpool will start straight away. So first of all, what we're going to do is start with our steam tip just below the surface of the milk so that when we turn the steam wand on, it won't splash up. But in order to add that air or that textured milk, that frothy milk into the jug, we need to lower our jug so that that steam tip is on the surface of the milk. So basically what we do is we start it, move the jug down so that the steam tip is now on the surface, and then as that whirlpool is going around, we're watching the volume of that milk increase. Now in next week's episode, we'll talk a little bit more about flat whites, lattes, cappuccinos and the differences there, but all we want to do for now is make sure our volume increases by about 1 centimeter. And then once that happens, we're going to raise the jug ever so slightly so that steam tip is back below the surface and there's no more air getting added into that milk. So from here, all we're doing is keeping an eye on the temperature. So you can do that by tapping your hand on the bottom of the jug, or if you need a thermometer, you can do it that way. We're aiming for about 60 to 65 degrees before we turn that steam wand off. Okay, so our milk's textured, it's up to that 65 degrees. We've turned it off. First thing you always want to do is take your cloth for the steam wand, give your steam wand a nice wipe to get rid of any of that hot milk, and give your steam wand another purge to get rid of any milk that might be within the steam tip. Next, we're going to have a look at our finished product. So if I draw another line with this whiteboard marker here, you'll see that it has raised about 1 centimeter. Now, if you haven't managed to get that 1 centimeter increase in your milk, that means that when you were texturing the milk, you didn't add enough air in. So you have to make sure your steam tip stays on the surface of the milk for long enough that volume increases. And if you've got way more than 1 centimeter, say you've got all that meringue dry kind of froth on there, it means that you are keeping your steam tip on the surface for too long. So once you've got enough air in your milk, make sure you raise the jug back up so that you lower the steam tip below the surface and stop adding air. Now just before we go to pour that milk into the espresso, we need to do a couple of things just to complete the texturing process. So first of all, we're going to knock the jug on the bench, and that's going to get rid of any bigger bubbles. And then we're going to give the jug a really vigorous swirl. So what we do is sit it on the bench and give it a good shake around, and that will get rid of the finer bubbles so we get this really velvety milk. Last thing we need to do after that is just pour it into our espresso shot, and that can be easier said than done. I will go through this in more depth next week, but basically how it works is the closer you pour into the cup, the more you open up the angle of that jug, and the frothier the milk is that will fall into the cup. So you want to start from a medium height and set that crema first of all, and if everything's looking very good, you want to just keep pouring steadily and watch that cup fill up. Also, if you're thinking about latte art and that side of things, that's exactly how we make that latte art happen. It's manipulating the height between the jug and the surface of the coffee. Again, that will be a later episode, so don't worry about that for just now. So hopefully these tips are really helping you understand your espresso machine a lot more. We're halfway through the 6-week bootcamp, so there's still a lot more to learn. But if you have any questions on what you've learned so far, definitely make sure you put those comments in the comments below so I can help you understand where you're going wrong. Remember, if you're running low on coffee or you've used a lot of coffee because you've been pulling all those shots last week, grab some more coffee from the website. It's coffeefusion.com.au. You can use that discount code if you haven't used it yet. Or if you want to keep that coffee coming, sign up for the subscription, get those free samples, and start playing around with the different coffees on your machine. Thank you so much again. I hope you're getting a lot out of this course, and we'll see you next week for caps, lattes, and flat whites. Keep frothing!